In July 1940, the U.S. Army launched an apparently impossible challenge to create a lightweight military vehicle capable of transporting 3 soldiers, traversing any terrain, and being mass-produced, all within just 49 days. What emerged from this race against time was a machine that General Dwight D. Eisenhower would later classify as one of the 3 tools that won World War II, alongside the C-47 Dakota aircraft and aircraft carriers. But in 1940, no one, not even its creators, imagined that this small vehicle weighing just 100 kilograms would completely revolutionize the nature of modern warfare. The smell of diesel oil mixed with mud, the constant roar of 4-cylinder engines echoing through European forests, and the metallic sound of chains being unrolled on Normandy beaches would become the soundtrack of an unprecedented military transformation. While German strategists calculated movement times based on paved roads and firm terrain, a small factory in Toledo, Ohio, was about to rewrite all the rules of war logistics. The question that would haunt Axis commanders for the next 5 years was simple. How could an entire army move so quickly through terrains that should have been impassable? The American Bantam Car Company, a small automaker on the brink of bankruptcy, received the military specifications on July 11, 1940. What the Army requested seemed to contradict the laws of automotive physics. A vehicle weighing a maximum of 590 kilograms but carrying 272 kilograms of cargo, with 4-wheel drive, reaching 80 km/h, and costing less than $739 per unit. Karl Probst, Bantam's chief engineer, looked at the papers scattered on his desk and felt the weight of impossibility. The sound of calculating machines echoed through the office as his team tried to solve the equation: how to build something more capable than German vehicles, but with half the weight. On September 23, 1940, exactly 49 days later, the first Bantam BRC-40 prototype rolled out of the factory, but Bantam was too small for the mass production that the war would require. The Army then did something unprecedented. It handed the designs to 2 larger companies, Willys Overland and Ford, asking them to improve the design. What followed was an engineering race that would produce not just a vehicle, but a new philosophy of military mobility. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, German planners continued to rely on their traditional estimates of troop movement, unaware that their basic premises about military logistics were about to become obsolete. The Willys MB, as the winning model became known, began rolling off production lines in 1941 with specifications that defied conventional military logic. Its 2.2-liter, 60-horsepower Go Devil engine could propel the vehicle to 105 km/h on roads, but its true revolution lay in its ability to maintain 40 km/h on terrains where other vehicles simply bogged down. The wheelbase of just 3 meters and ground clearance of 22 centimeters allowed the Jeep to navigate obstacles that would force tanks into long detours. But the numbers only hinted at the transformation to come. In December 1941, when the United States officially entered the war, American factories had already produced 8,598 units. In 1942, that number jumped to 159,556. In 1943, 315,000 Jeeps rolled off the production lines. The pace was hypnotic. Every 90 seconds, a new Jeep completed assembly, creating a mechanized army of speed and flexibility never before seen in military history. American soldiers described the sensation of driving through dense forests as navigating a green labyrinth, where the 4-cylinder engine's roar mixed with the snapping of broken branches. Meanwhile, German intelligence reports began mentioning an anomalous mobility of Allied forces, without yet fully understanding its origin. The first real demonstration of the Jeep's transformative power came during Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of North Africa in November 1942. Lieutenant Colonel Paul Robinette, commanding American armored forces, recorded in his diary an observation that would become prophetic. "Our Jeeps cross sand dunes that our Sherman tanks need to go around. We are moving 3 times faster than our own estimates." The Sahara Desert, with its seemingly endless stretches of soft sand and uneven rocks, should have favored the experienced German Afrika Korps, but American Jeeps, equipped with low-pressure tires and optimized weight distribution, turned the desert from an obstacle into a highway. The distinctive sound of Willys' engines echoing through the dunes became the harbinger of flanking attacks impossible to predict. Erwin Rommel, in his reports to Berlin, repeatedly mentioned the exceptional mobility of American forces, noting that Allied units appeared in positions that his maps indicated as inaccessible to motorized vehicles. In a letter to his wife Lucy, dated January 15, 1943, Rommel wrote, "The enemy possesses a mobility that our calculations did not foresee. They appear where they should not be able to reach." It was the first sign that the war was fundamentally changing. The true logistical revolution of the Jeep manifested during the Italian campaign, initiated in September 1943. The Apennine Mountains, with their narrow medieval roads and rocky terrain, should have favored German defense. General Heinrich von Wettinghoff, commanding the 10th German Army, had based his entire defensive strategy on the premise that the mountainous terrain would severely limit Allied mobility. His estimates indicated that the Allied advance would be slow and predictable, following the few main roads. But American Jeeps rewrote these tactical equations. Capable of climbing inclines of up to 60 degrees and navigating goat trails just 1.5 meters wide, they turned every valley and ridge into a potential attack route. Sergeant Anthony Acevedo of the 70th Infantry Division described in his memoirs the sensation of driving a Jeep loaded with ammunition along a mountain trail. "The engine groaned, the wheels slipped on the wet stone, but we always got where we needed to. It was like having land wings." German documents captured after the war revealed the growing frustration of commanders. Intelligence reports mentioned ghostly apparitions of Allied vehicles in positions considered inaccessible, forcing constant revisions of defensive plans. The psychological impact of the Jeep on German forces became evident during the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944. General Hasso von Manteuffel, commanding the 5th Panzer Army, had planned his offensive based on the premise that the frozen terrain and snow-blocked roads would drastically limit American response capability. His estimates indicated that Allied forces would take at least 72 hours to reorganize their supply lines through the snow-covered forests. But Jeeps, equipped with chains and engine heaters, kept communication and supply lines operational even in the most adverse conditions. The sound of Jeep convoys crossing the snow during the early morning became a constant nightmare for German soldiers, who knew that each distant engine meant reinforcements, ammunition, and supplies reaching American lines. Oberst Friedrich von der Heydte, commanding German paratroopers, recorded in his post-battle report, "The enemy's ability to keep their supply lines operational in conditions we considered prohibitive was a decisive factor in our defeat." German prisoners captured during the battle consistently reported their surprise at the omnipresence of American vehicles, appearing in locations and times that contradicted all tactical expectations. The war was being won not just by soldiers and weapons, but by a silent revolution in speed and logistical flexibility. When the guns fell silent in May 1945, the numbers told a story of unprecedented transformation. Between 1941 and 1945, 645,000 Willys MB and 4 GPW Jeeps were produced, an average of one vehicle every 90 seconds for 4 consecutive years. These numbers represented more than production statistics. They documented the creation of a new way of waging war. German General Staff documents, discovered after the war, revealed that Reich planners had systematically underestimated the speed of Allied advance in all theaters of operation, with calculation errors ranging between 200% and 400%. General Alfred Jodl, chief of the Wehrmacht General Staff, admitted during the Nuremberg trials that American logistical capability exceeded all our intelligence projections. The Jeep had done more than transport soldiers. It had transported the war into a new era of mobility and flexibility. Today, when we observe modern conflicts where response speed and the ability to operate in diverse terrains determine military success, we are seeing the legacy of that small 100-kilogram vehicle that emerged from a factory in Toledo. The lesson remains clear. In war, as in life, it is not always the biggest or the most powerful that wins, but the one who can be in the right place, at the right time, faster than anyone imagined possible.